They're intimidating, these children, as you'll discover soon. But I think what really is very exciting about speaking with them is how very much they want to actually tell us their stories. I found that really refreshing, the candor with which they talk and the insights that they have to offer. I'm hoping all of that will come up as we go on in the next 1 hour or so. So before we begin, I'll just sort of very quickly introduce them to you, and then we could just probably get into the conversation. So at the far end, we have Arjun Bharat. He's 13 years old and the chess prodigy. He began playing chess when he was 4. And as he'll tell you soon, he said he cried when he lost to the computer. And it took him 6 months, ladies and gentlemen, to beat the computer. He thinks it's a long time. And after that, he's been on a winning spree. He'll tell you more about himself. Thrisha Mohan, at 11 years old, is already on her way to building her first app. She says it was to wheedle an iPod Touch from her parents to begin with, but now it's because she enjoys programming. So you can see what a quick study she is. And Raghav Sood, 15 years old, has a list of achievements which leaves me a little quiet for some time. He's written 3 books. He has a company, 1 book. He has a company registered already and has been building apps, first for the desktop when he was 9 years old, and has then transited to the mobile world as mobile applications have come on. So you can see he's an entrepreneur well on his way. He'll also tell us more about him. So that's really who we have today, and I'm sure we're going to find this very exciting. Like I said, what's really interesting about them is the candor and really how very much they have to share about the way they've gone about things. So I thought, Thrisha, would begin with you. If you could, I know you mentioned that you wanted a gift. That's why you decided you wanted to build an app. Do you want to tell them really how you decided on what you wanted to build and what really got you interested in the kind of app that you are actually working on?
Well, about a few months ago, I was talking to my dad and I was asking him for an iPod Touch, and he told me that only once I built an application, he would let me have one. So I went to school and talked to my friends about it, and we slowly began putting things together, and we decided it would be a jewelry app, and that's how it started, and then we started putting it together on a piece of paper.
So you kind of did a poll and decided a jewelry app is what 11-year-olds would be interested in?
11-year-old girls, not exactly pleading him to sit down with me and actually do it on a computer, and slowly we started with using a computer and all the videos that we've seen and started programming.
Raghav, you want to talk a little more about how one starts programming itself? Thrisha seems to be at a stage which you have passed and you've come ahead, right? You began when you were 9, so a little younger than her too. So how did you first start programming itself?
I first got into programming with the web mainly. I started by learning HTML, which once I learned it, I felt very proud that I've learned how to program. I know how to make websites. Then a few weeks later, I started learning JavaScript and CSS, and I found out that HTML barely counts as a programming language in the first place. So that kind of got me down a little initially. But once you start programming, it comes naturally to you. You learn to make sense of what you're supposed to do and break it down into small logical parts which you can then put down in code. The computer just interprets it for you.
So where did you find the tools that you needed to actually begin on this process and to take it forward? Were these easily available? Did you have to refer to or get help from outside?
So when I first started, I was only using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, for which you don't need any tools as such. Any web browser can run all of them, and to write it, you can write it in Word or Notepad or anything that can make a text file. So initially the tools were not a problem. What initially took me some time was to find some good programming tutorials online. I've never had any formal training. I'm completely self-taught. So a lot of the tutorials I found online referred to stuff as if you were supposed to know it inside out already. Eventually I found a few sites which unfortunately no longer exist, which easily explained it word by word to a beginner.
So, Thrisha, do you use help of that sort? You mentioned that you're now a little bit on your own and you have to learn on your own also.
Yeah, my dad's been downloading some videos that I've got, and every day I sit down and watch a video or two learning how to program slowly.
So is this sort of preparation what you also began with, Arjun? Yours is 4 years old, I know, when you first started playing chess. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got interested and how you actually began learning how to do this?
I actually was very interested in video games. So I used to play a lot of video games, and I used to like crack them without reading the instructions because I didn't understand any of the instructions. So chess was one of the video games on one of the softwares that I was playing video games on, and somehow I could not crack this game. So I asked my mother, how do you crack this game? How do you play the game? And after she taught me, I went to the computer. I was determined to beat it the first time I played, but of course that was not true. I lost many times. Every time I lost, I would cry. I would come back, get ready for another game, and after many losses, I came back and I won a game. After that, I kept beating the computer, and I didn't lose one game to that computer.
So was it was obviously a challenge, right? That you felt that you had to beat and you had to get on with it. So how did you get interested in continuing with it? I mean, when did it stop being a game? When did you get serious about chess, and how?
Actually, it's still a game for me now.
That's nice. That's really nice to know. But you have done more with it than just, it's not a leisure time pursuit for you, right? It's something that you spend a lot of your time on. 3 hours a day?
Yeah, I spend 3 hours a day normally on school days, and I got really serious in the game when I turned 7, because by then I'd realized I'd actually been performing in all of the state tournaments. The first state tournament I played, I actually came 3rd, and that was 1 year higher than my category. And once I turned 7, I started trying to get ELO rating. An ELO rating is basically something which defines your ranking. The higher your rating, the higher your ranking.
Do you want to tell us a little more about why it is important for a chess player to have an ELO rating, or is it mandatory for you to have an ELO rating? How does it help you probably, enter tournaments? Want to explain to us a little bit about what it is and how it is calculated?
Actually, if you beat a higher rated player, you get more ELO points than if you beat a lower rated player. And if you want to get a rating, you have to play 9 rated players, and you have to get a specific number of points.
So what is your rating right now?
My rating right now is 2286.
Does that help you enter particular tournaments? Do you need a particular base ELO rating to enter any particular tournament?
Some tournaments you need a basic ELO rating. Other tournaments you don't. There are some tournaments which are 2200 plus. If you have an ELO rating of 2200 or more, then you're allowed to play it. But if you have an ELO rating of less than 2200, you're not allowed to play those tournaments. And if you have a higher ELO rating, the higher your ranking is.
Sure. So which means this is little more than a game for you right now. You are pretty serious about it, right? So Raghav, do you want to tell us when you got serious about programming and realized that it was far more interesting than school?
Okay, so I did about web development for about 2 years. While I was doing this in school, in the computers class, they would teach us how to... Actually, they wouldn't teach us anything up till about class 6. We would go to computers and they'd have this little maths game where there'd be 2 numbers and you add them and subtract them and multiply them. So that's all we did for like 7 years. And so once I started programming, I saw that a computer is much more than a screen with 2 numbers on it. So that got me really interested in how it actually works. So after doing this for about 2 years, I started making desktop applications using the .NET framework from Microsoft. Now I wouldn't probably be caught dead using a Microsoft computer, but I did that for about 2 years. So I came up with an encryption application which worked pretty well, and so yeah.
So really, how did you get the word out? You were obviously at this point of time exploring and discovering. Obviously, it was a process of discovery. When did you realize that you needed to get what you've built out into the larger world and get other people to, sort of engage with, buy your products, work with your products?
So the first time I realized that I should make my products and my work well known was when I'd been doing this for around 1.5 years, and I talked to another person online.
How old were you at that time?
I was about 10 then. So I talked to another person online, and he didn't know I was 10. He treated me as an equal. He was a pretty well-known programmer. He treated me as an equal, and when he found out I was 10, he was really surprised. So that showed me that online people don't care how old you are. They care what you can do. And if you can do it as well as them or better, they'll be happy to accept it and will help you get even better. So at that time, I hadn't really put up anything, because I'd only been creating local websites. So after that, I had my father rent a server, and we started publishing the websites. And then when I started desktop and mobile development, I drew on my previous experience from web development to maintain sites which would popularize what I'm doing.
And all of this while you were still juggling school and this work? How did you give up something to spend so much time working on programming?
I've never really been into sports very much. I haven't played a proper match in years now. I used to play tennis, but I stopped that as well. I used to skate, but I don't do any of that anymore. So yeah, I pretty much gave up sports altogether. And but up until about 2.5, 3 years ago, I wasn't really as serious about this as I am now. So then it was more of a hobby than a proper career option as it is now. So I only got serious about 3 years ago, and once I started mobile development, I've figured out that it's what I want to do.
Thrisha, you want to tell us a little more about what it takes to actually stay focused on what you want to do? Because it's interesting, I know, when you begin, but how do you stay focused? How do you continue working on it?
Well, let me share this with an experience. I was sitting down with my dad watching some videos and starting to program, and my brother walks along and my father says, "Why don't you come join us and you can learn a bit while your sister is learning as well." So he sat down for like 10 minutes. He got bored, he got up and left the room. And so what I wanted to tell everyone is that don't give up as easily as my brother does. Take some more time, and even if it gets you bored after 15 minutes, for 15 minutes every hour, every day, you can work on it to progress.
Do you do that? Do you do you tell yourself that you need to do so much every day?
For half an hour every day, I usually sit at the computer, because otherwise I have schoolwork and everything else.
Arjun, I was wondering, because there is so much of what Thrisha is saying, I suppose, is relevant to the way you prepare for games, or is it different? If you can tell us a little bit of how you actually prepare for a game, and how do you go about the process of doing this?
When I prepare for a game, I actually start by looking at what my opponent plays at the start of the game. Every player has their own specific line. So I basically see what he plays, and based on what he plays, I prepare what I am going to play for him.
How early does this process begin? So if you have a game planned, so you know who your opponent is going to be. So how soon do you begin your preparation?
Sometimes the moment I know who my opponent is.
Okay. And how long does it take?
It depends. Some opponents you don't find anything of them whatsoever, so it's very tough to prepare. But some opponents you find a lot of their games, and it is actually very easy to prepare because you know what he's going to play. And sometimes you actually find new moves which have not been played before. These moves might be better than the previously played moves. And we call them novelties. And sometimes we use these novelties to beat our opponents.
So how would you describe your approach to chess? Do you take an intuitive approach, or do you prefer the more preparatory mode?
It actually depends. The intuitive approach normally does not work out, because if you rely too much on your intuition and you have no calculation, then you might make a mistake and actually lose immediately in five or six moves, like after the game starts.
And if you were to take the more, I remember you were telling me in an earlier conversation that it depends a lot on your mood as well, and what approach you take. Do you want to describe that, on how you actually go about the process?
One of the games, I was playing against somebody who had actually cheated against one of my friends. I was very, very, very angry, and I played completely different than my normal style. And before he knew it, he was checkmated. And he didn't realize what had happened before the mate had been played on the board. But other times when I'm more peaceful and I'm not really in like a hurry to do something, or very angry, or when there's any moody expressions.
Sure. So in those cases, how far ahead do you think?
In those cases, sometimes I think to 15 moves deep, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It depends mainly on the position.
Okay.
Some positions need 20 moves deep, some positions only 15, some positions 10, some positions 5. Everything depends on the position that you're playing.
So what do you like to open with? Do you like a white opening all the time, so that you can checkmate them in quick time?
Not really. I actually prefer black.
You do? So you are a more method player.
Yeah, kind of.
And you, Raghav, how do you go about you've now spoken of this as a career option. So do you think ahead? How do you plan your work? How do you think ahead? How far ahead do you think?
So right now I've planned ahead for around at least 5-6 years. So I've already got a company registered in the US, which actually wasn't registered for a company purpose as such. Earlier, Google Play didn't let us sell apps from India. They only started supporting it a couple of weeks ago. So to get around that, a few months ago, I registered a company in the US. So now what I'm going to do is I plan to go abroad to universities like Stanford and MIT, where I want to take courses in artificial intelligence. And after taking those, I would like to come back to this company and actually expand it beyond a one-man show.
Also, while you've been doing this, you've also actually found time to write a book. You have a book here. I think you should sort of show people this. So that was interesting. Do you want to tell us how this book deal happened? And so do tell us how did this happen?
I got the contract for this book in around September 2011. So the publisher A-Press found me through my activities on various forums like the Google group for the Android developers and Stack Overflow. So they initially contacted me to review Pro Android 4, which was one of the existing manuscripts, but that didn't quite work out. Instead, they asked me if I'd like to write a book, and they listed 3 topics for which they wanted a book in their catalog. I picked augmented reality as I had slight prior experience with it, and I started writing the book in November. The first 2 chapters were pretty easy. After that, I realized that I might have bitten off more than I could chew, and there wasn't much material available. Augmented reality itself is a new field, and on mobile development, it's even newer. So I ended up writing about 7,000 lines of code for this in the span of 6 months. And so this book also uses a library which I co-developed with a developer from Germany, which also required us to port an existing C library to Android to begin with.
Obviously, there's a huge issue of time management that we'll come back to you on, Raghav, surely. In the meantime, what I also wanted to ask Arjun, do you think you've started playing with the computer? So, and you, I think, spend a lot of your time preparing and for matches and also now practice on the computer. How much do you think this has changed the way chess is played itself?
Computers have changed a lot of chess, because without computers, we won't be able to find novelties with ease. And also, it has improved the preparation that are there. You have to remember a lot more than if you did not have computers.
Do you want to tell us a few of the novelties that you've sort of used, perhaps, or any of the methods that you use to stun opponents, of course?
I have actually played one novelty against a grandmaster and beaten him. This was in 2011. He didn't understand the move, because novelties normally have a very deep thought. If you do not understand the idea of the novelty, you normally lose very quickly.
Do you want to describe to us in a way we can understand, of course? What did you do and what was the method that you used?
I basically was going through my variations and I wasn't liking one position, and I decided not to go in this position against my opponent. And my opponent was kind of a little bit older, so his calculation wouldn't be that strong compared to me.
How much older was he, Arjun?
40 years older.
That is, it is a little older. Okay. So, did you get to checkmate him earlier than you thought you would, than you anticipated?
I didn't checkmate him. I won a piece and he resigned.
Okay. So, do you think that happened because you use the computer much more, that you're able to come up with more variations?
Yeah, kind of, because the computer makes everything easier. Also, you're able to hold your variations without carrying a big fat book with you wherever you go. So, and also your novelties are way easier to find.
Do you find that you have an advantage? I think you mentioned the age thing over here. Is it because you can sort of hold so many more moves in your mind itself that you can draw upon while you're playing? So do you think chess is a young person's game?
Not really. Even the old people can play, because when you're older, you have a lot more experience, and you can use that actually to beat many people. There's actually this 80-year-old person called Victor Korchnoi. He still plays. He used to be world number 2, but he could never become world number 1 for some odd reason. And he is very strong at calculation and very good at positional chess. He has beaten like many people over the past decades. And because of his experience, his intuition is very strong, and also his understanding of the positions is very strong.
Thrisha, I wanted to ask you, both Arjun and Raghav tend to do their work pretty much, they kind of rely on themselves really to work. You seem to have an approach where you sort of involve others around you in terms of ideas, and also perhaps, try and get suggestions on what you might want to build. Do you think you're more of a people person? Do you think that's a way to go about it?
Yeah, because if you take other people's opinion, then you know how they would want it and how most people might want it. So I usually go about asking my class and other people who all my friends what they might like, because then their opinions will make a big difference in the way that
has that actually happened with you? Have you changed anything in the way you're going about building your app from inputs that others have given you?
Yeah, like one of my friends, she told me there was supposed to be a game with more of a game than just than a view type of app. And My friend told me that the type of game that I was going to create, no one usually buys those games. And I checked one of the games like that, and there were like 3 or 4 downloaders, that's all.
Okay. So that was a good input.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Raghav, I was wondering if you could tell us how, moving on to the mobile has made a difference to you, and how do you see the future really for app development, given that the mobile platform is so much more accessible now and provides you new opportunity?
So moving on to the mobile from a desktop and web background has really shown me a lot of new things. On a desktop, desktops have been around for a very long time. Windows, Mac, Linux, they've all been here for several years, decades even. So a lot of what can be done has already been done on them. There's not much you can bring which is new to the table. So moving on to the mobile, however, I started about 2 years ago when smartphones worldwide were pretty new, and especially in India. So there was a lot, and even now there is a lot which hasn't been done on mobiles. And India has 930 million mobile phone subscribers, out of which 30 million use smartphones and several 100 million others are internet enabled. So millions of people are accessing the internet for the first time using a mobile phone. In rural areas, nobody knows what a laptop is. Desktops are unheard of. But people are still on Facebook, they are on Twitter, they use their mobiles. You have people who've never ever seen anyone even run a laptop game or a desktop game or edit a Word document, who are posting status updates every 5 minutes.
So did the kind of apps that you were building earlier, has that changed now that you have a new device which provides so much more access to different varieties of people? So did that influence the kind of apps that you thought of building?
Yeah, earlier on the desktop, I was making small utilities and games. And my first Android app was Noughts and Crosses, which I made a week after getting the first phone. However, now I have a much better understanding of what is going on around me, and I'm trying to target my apps more in a way that they actually solve a real problem rather than become the millionth Noughts and Crosses app available.
Okay, that's interesting. So when you talk of how it will solve a problem, are there particular areas that you're interested in, that you focus on, that you get excited by?
The areas which most excite me are apps which are actually smart. We call them smartphones, but a lot of our apps aren't all that smart. You click a button, it does something. You need to tell it exactly what you want it to do. I'm trying to develop apps which are intuitive, that learn before you know what to do. So they'll do what you want without you knowing that you want to do it. Which is why I also want to go into artificial intelligence, as it's a great, huge part of this.
Sure, that's interesting too. And Arjun, you might want to tell us about the most exciting tournament you've been at. Do you want to tell us which was the most exciting tournament you've been at till now, really, and why?
The most exciting tournament I've been at was in France. I beat 2 grandmasters, and I almost beat my 3rd one, but I blundered and I lost.
And do you want to talk a little bit about why you lost? Because I know you mentioned that earlier also. That was something that you think of, that it's a game finally, right? And that to lose is not the end of it.
Yeah, I realized that loss means nothing to me. Because when you lose, you don't lose everything that you've got. You only lose just 1 or 2 rating points probably. Because when I played a tournament right now, the latest tournament, in 4 games I lost 2 games. So
Okay.
And I had not even won 1 single game. I was 1 out of 4. Then I came back with vengeance, saying I'll play the best that I can do from now. And I managed to win 3 games and lose not even 1 game after that.
Okay. And what sort of preparation do you do before a game to stay focused? Because chess is a very intensive game. And I know you spend a lot of time planning moves, and like you've been describing, you take the method approach. So how do you go about it? How do you prepare for a game?
I normally do some tactics, as they're called. They're basically chess combinations. chess problems before the game. These sharpen my calculation so that I can calculate longer, better, and slightly faster.
And do you do this on a regular basis, or do you do this as you're approaching a tournament?
I do this on a regular basis, and sometimes during the tournaments also.
And how do you think chess has helped you otherwise? Has it helped you, what are the other subjects at school perhaps that being focused on chess has helped you?
Chess has, of course, helped me with math because sometimes I'm able to remember my problems in my head, so I don't need a pen and a paper to write it down.
Okay.
Because when I was in 4th grade, I used to be solving simultaneous equations, and it wasn't quite difficult then.
And it's gotten only progressively easier?
Yeah, it's got only progressively easier.
Okay, there we go. So really, what are you looking forward to? You were talking about how you might want to take a year off from school to focus on chess. Is that something you think of? Is that something you would want to do?
Yeah, I might do that so that I can probably get my Grandmaster title or something like that. And
what do you need to do that? I mean, what sort of ELO rating do you need for it, or how many more tournaments do you need to play to get your Grandmaster rating?
I need a ELO rating of 2500, and there's some other requirements which are required for a Grandmaster norm.
How far away do you think you are now? Just putting pressure on you. She's saying commit to a date.
I don't know. I'm trying to do it by next summer.
That would be in the next 6 months?
Yeah, next 6 months.
Okay, so you would be amongst the youngest Grandmasters if you get there?
Probably, but the youngest Grandmaster was 12 years old.
Okay, so you're just a little ahead of that. And
Not really.
So Thrisha, do you want to tell us if programming has helped you with thinking clearer on other subjects? Has it helped you with anything?
Well, yeah, it helps me organize my thoughts into what I need to do first, what happens next, and then finally what you need to be done. And it helps me put the icing on the cake last instead of first without the cake.
Okay. Now that is an insight, definitely. So Raghav, you're not, you don't think very highly of school, I hear. So you must tell us really how do you approach the way your work, and how do you manage time itself, right? You also spoke about college and your plans for college, so clearly school is necessary. So how do you manage sort of how do you juggle all your ambitions?
So I program a lot, like every day for at least, I'm usually up really late, I don't sleep much. So I'm programming for anywhere between 5 to 12 hours a day at times. So that, and I do go to school despite what people may say. So I spend about 6 hours there, so that's 18 hours of the day gone. So the homework, there's not much time left for it, but I still manage to get it done. So one thing which I found very helpful in time management is, in school, if you just listen in class, you generally know more than enough to pass easily enough. So you don't need to spend too much time at home bugging everything up last minute.
So the trick really is to listen.
Yeah, and then remember.
Okay. So do you all agree? Is that the way to go?
Yeah, you have to understand it as well.
So that, what's interesting really is a lot of people talk about young people being distracted very easily. But very clearly with all three of you, what I can see from the way this conversation is progressing is that distraction is not one of the things that you all are burdened with. So Arjun, you want to tell us a little more about how chess has helped you organize your thoughts and obviously get you to the level that you now have?
Chess has helped me organize my thoughts basically because now I can focus more, understand what's going on. Because before I didn't listen also sometimes. and I'll be wondering what's going on. Then I'll ask my friend, what's going on?
So chess has helped you clarify your thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you see this going? I mean, do you see when you take a year off, how do you plan to, what's the sort of time that you hope to put into practice? How will you go about it?
At least 8 hours a day.
8 hours a day? Okay. And 8 hours a day working on the computer or working with others who you will train with? You train with a grandmaster. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Basically, everybody tells me that working on the computer normally isn't that good because it does not improve your board vision. Because when you're playing a game, you're not playing on the computer. You're playing on the board. So if you work on the computer, your board vision is actually not at all strong.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things my coach said.
Mm-hmm. So which means you need to actually get down to playing with people and trying to anticipate. How would you describe chess? It's trying to understand the opponent's thought process, isn't it?
Not really. Normally you should try to find the best move in the position.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you understand your opponent's thought process, doesn't make a difference if you play a different move.
Mm-hmm.
He might see that this is a blunder and
Mm-hmm.
not play that, and then you've probably made a mistake.
Okay. So you having your own view of how the game should progress is the way you think you should go about it?
Yeah. I think this is the correct direction if I want to go like this.
And so you're looking to play with more people, get more board practice itself?
For board practice, those chess problems, I set them on the board, and I do them on the board, then on the computer, because, again, it improves my board vision.
So what are some of your favorite moves? What have been most successful for you? What gets that smile back on your face?
You can't really have a favorite move. It depends on the position.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to have one favorite move, and whenever I played that move, I used to lose.
So you've given up on it now? It's not a favorite anymore, that means.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long did it take for you to realize that you were losing?
5 games.
5 games? Okay, that's a quick study. So Arjun tells us he can hold up to 20 moves in your mind. You can think 20 moves ahead?
Normally I can,
Okay.
when I put pressure on myself to do so. But in the game, I don't have the time to do that because your clock is ticking.
Okay.
And I've actually lost on time once.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have? Okay. So what do you find the most challenging?
Keeping my studies in touch with chess.
Okay. And how do you plan to approach that problem? You're 13, so you're obviously... I know you said you're interested in keeping the balance between studies and chess. How do you hope to do that?
I'll just try to do better when I'm in class. And normally, most of the homework that's given, I finish it in school, so I don't have to bring back anything home.
So there's clearly a lot of method in the way you go about it, right? So Thrisha, do you do this? Do you plan the way you...
Well, since I only spend half an hour on programming and doing everything I need to, I usually have the rest of like 2 hours to do whatever I need to. So, and in our school we don't get that much homework, so whatever homework we do have, I finish it, and then I go out to play and have some fun.
Okay. So that you're the only one who seems to have other interests that you want to keep going. You said you learn music and that you're...
Yeah, I play the
playing
piano
tennis?
and
Mhm.
I go for tennis classes, and I love baking.
Baking as well. So Raghav, you must tell us a little more about how you actually closed the book deal. I think that's a pretty specialized thing to have done at that age, right? So what were the things that you had to look out for?
So I was about halfway through talking with the publisher about closing the deal when it occurred to me that I should probably mention that I'm 15. So after I did that...
So this was online? All of
yeah,
this was
is
happening
all
online?
done through email.
Okay.
So I initially expected them to turn me down after that, saying that there's some legal thing, you can't pay a minor or you can't hire a minor or something. But they took it really well, and I was signed up within a week of that after that.
Okay.
So then after that, I began researching for the book. So I got in touch with a developer who made SpecTrek, which is a game for Android, which uses augmented reality. It won the Android Developer Challenge 2, which was held by Google a couple of years ago. So he really helped me out with getting the basics sorted out. But that was about the only external help I took from the book, for the book.
For the book itself. So how's the book doing now? And do you plan to write more?
So the book's doing pretty well now. A few days after it was published, it was ranked 18th among 1,500 books on game programming on Amazon and 31st among 1,800 books on mobile development.
That's terrific.
So and now I don't have exact sale figures, but I'm pretty sure it's doing well, as the publishers contacted me to write a second book on user interface.
And what sort of deadlines do you have for it? When do you need to deliver this?
So this book was written in 6 months, but for the second book, I've told the publisher I'll take a little longer, as despite my aversion to studies, I still have to give the 3 exams coming up.
Minor detail, right?
Yeah.
So are you in the process of doing this? Will you be collaborating with anybody, or is this going to be a solo effort?
So I'll be the sole author on the book, but as a technical reviewer, one of the people I met through an online chat room and on the Android topic itself will be the technical reviewer for the book.
So the publisher remains the same. You're working with the
Yes,
same
the publisher
publisher.
remains the same.
Also, in terms of registering a company, what was your experience? That must have been interesting for you as well, right?
So actually, it took us longer to research how to register a company abroad than to actually register it, because one, we aren't US citizens, so I don't have a US passport or a citizenship. So, and on top of that, I'm a minor, so we weren't even sure if I could be the owner of a company. So as it turns out, you can be the owner of a company as long as there is a local US resident who has also got a stake in the company. So one of my relatives holds a 10% stake right now, and we got the registration done through an online company called LegalZoom, when basically you pay them a fee and they handle everything for you.
So how do you see yourself balancing your work in terms of sort of developing apps and building a business, and also getting skilled with the area of artificial intelligence that you spoke about? How will you continue doing the two together?
So I'm going to try and finish the book, the second book, and it should publish by mid of next year, June or July, hopefully. And after that, I'm planning to give my SATs next year, most probably around September. And following that, I will try to go abroad. So during this time, I will continue development at pretty much the same scale as I am now, a new app every couple of months. And after I'm done with college, then I will go into business fully and hopefully employ some people and expand the company. And after that, it's studies are formally done, but you never stop learning.
You have Thrisha here, who's building app as well, and if you were to review it, how would you see it? Your interests seem to be more in utilitarian apps, right, in things that make a difference. What's the market that you see for an app of the sort that Thrisha is building?
I'm actually not very clear on what the app is, so perhaps you could tell us.
Yeah. It's basically, it shows you different designs. There are two things that you can do. You can view designs that you can make your own. It basically shows you what designs you can make, and then maybe you could make it on your own.
Okay, so a big selling point for this app would be to actually sell it to jewelers. So they can have a device in their jewelry store, and people can come and design the design they want and then leave an order with the jeweler. Other than that, the jewelers could show it to showcase their catalogs, or a less jewelry scenario would be to adapt it to work with other products outside of the jewelry case.
Sure. And when you think of it from a perspective of what you can do more, so would you think there would be more of a market for utilitarian apps, the kind that you would be building?
Right now, smartphones, as far as I've seen, are a lot more with teenagers and children than with adults. So right now, games tend to go a lot better than utility apps, as far as I've seen.
And is that how would you see that? Because you mentioned earlier about making a difference, right? So how do you plan? What do you hope to focus on?
So I do have a few games published and I'm working on 2 more. But apart from that, I'd like to make apps which are targeted at older people, because apps take a bit of time to make. It's not like you get up one day and, okay, I'll make this app and then publish it next week. I've been working on these 2 games for several months now. It takes even longer if you're working alone. So by the time I actually finish the utility apps, I hope that there'll be a much bigger market. It's predicted that by 2017, you'll have over 1 billion smartphones. That's not counting tablets.
Okay. So when you say you will look at building apps for older people, do you think they're more of a paying customer base? Is that why you're saying you'd build it for them?
So actually, paying customers come in 2 types. It depends on your app. One is a flat-out buying, which works very well on iOS. On Android, though, a better model is to use in-app purchases that offer extra content at a small price. That actually works very well with youngsters. The demographs show that adults are less likely to buy in-app purchases, but they're more than happy to pay $9 for an app to begin with and then never touch it again after that.
Okay. And Thrisha, how do you see your app being used? Do you want it to be used by a large community of people or by people you know? What are your plans?
Well, right now my aim is to finish the app because I haven't done much on programming it, just looking at the videos and like learning. I want to complete the app and then look for who's going to use it and why.
And how soon do you think you will finish? What sort of a time frame have you set?
I think by about like Jan next year, because I have to balance my school as well, and we start having exams in March next year, so I need to finish it before that.
So Arjun, has having found something that you're passionate about so early, do you think that has helped you stay focused?
Yeah, I think so.
And why are you not very sure about it?
Because it kind of also like slightly distracts me a bit, so.
Okay, distracts you from what? From studies? From what? What does it distract you from?
Sometimes studies, sometimes other stuff.
So how do you, really, just going back to a question that I asked you earlier, really, how do you prepare for a match?
Like I told you about the novelties, that's one part. Then the other part is sharpening your calculation by basically doing puzzles, combinations, tactics, everything. Then there's not really much of like studying the middle game part that comes after the opening, and the ending part when you're preparing for an opponent.
You also mentioned earlier that in an earlier conversation that having computers to practice with has made openings very important in chess. Is that a change that you've noticed because of computers?
Yeah, it's a very big change because before people would probably prepare up 20 moves. Now there's one person who was playing a game. He said he forgot his 51st move.
Okay. And you think the nature of chess has changed because of that, now with more attention being paid to the opening itself?
Yeah, it's actually been a very big change because in the middle game there's almost like nothing new. And in the middle game ending, like there's very little focus. You only focus on the fundamentals and the slightly important parts a little bit later. And you don't really focus on the other parts of it.
Okay. And that's a change that's happened because of the use of computers itself in preparation.
Yeah.
And has chess gained or lost as a result of that? How do you see it?
I see it as a loss. Because computers, they keep getting stronger. Sooner or later, they'll be able to calculate everything out. And they'll be able to say the result of chess.
Okay.
which is basically a big loss for all of the people who play chess.
The variations have gone out from individual variations. Is that what you're saying?
All the lines are out, which means that everybody knows the best moves in the position. They know what to play, they know what to do.
Sure. So really what's interesting out of this whole session for me really is how such young people have been able to focus on something that's gripped their attention and have stayed with it. So do you want to quickly tell us how do you see this? Do you see this as what you would want to do with the rest of your life? And how do you know, is this the career that you want to build for yourself? Each of you in turn?
Well, I'm not sure. It depends on how this first step goes. Like if I have fun doing it and if I'm able to put it out to the market. And depending on that, I'll choose my career.
Choose your career? Yeah. And Raghav, I know you've said this is a career choice, but really?
Yeah, so I fully intend to keep doing this. I really enjoy doing it, and so I do intend to make this my career.
Okay. The fact that you use the word enjoy is really interesting. And do you think you're amongst the lucky ones to have found something that you enjoyed this early on?
So programming can get kind of irritating at times. Sometimes you've written code and it doesn't work and you have no idea why it doesn't work, even though you should know because you're the one who wrote it. So then you spend hours debugging it, and in the end it'll be something really, really minor and stupid, like you forgot to initialize a variable or you're calling it from the wrong thread. So at times it can be frustrating, but that's also the fun in it. You are technically beating yourself.
Okay. So it's like winning a battle against yourself also.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring, Raghav. All the very best. And Arjun, you mentioned earlier about how you've learned to deal with loss and how you're dealing with failure. So what else has chess taught you?
It has taught me that when I make a wrong mistake, it actually improves my experience. So I know that I won't play this mistake before. And if I come into a similar situation, this time I'll play a better move. And because of this better move, I'll win.
Okay.
So a wrong mistake might eventually help me out to win.
Words of wisdom, okay, for someone so young. Thank you so much, Arjun, Thrisha, Raghav. It's been absolutely inspiring listening to all of you. And all the very best.